Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. It's really, really fun to have you here.
Very, very grateful to be here, Kathy.
You have so much love and passion and energy that I feel like what is inside of you is equal to 1,000 people's amount of heart and passion.
Well, that is very kind of you. And I feel like that's definitely one of the gifts that I was given by God. And it's really just been a journey of harnessing that energy in the most positive way possible while also staying really grounded and connected to myself in the process.
It's really just so beautiful to me because your heart just shines and breaks and shines and breaks on behalf of wanting to just see people free. And so I want you to first tell us, before we dive into like all the ways that you assist people in breaking free, tell us a little bit about your story and why you're even the one on this journey, because you've been there, right? My rabbi always says you can help somebody out of a well because you've been down in that well before. So tell us a little bit about how you know a little bit about where people are and what gives you the authority then to understand how to help them out of that place.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like every single obstacle that we've overcome in our journey has the opportunity to be the biggest opportunity to help others on their journey, right? And I would say the way that manifested for me was when I was 13 and my older brother was 18, he went down a path of drugs, alcohol addiction. And for the next 15 years, it was pretty much absent from my life, my family's life. And it caused so much pain to my parents. You know, you're a Jewish mom. Like the worst nightmare for a parent is witnessing your child suffer and seeing seeing my parents go through that. And then also for me, not even recognizing how much of an impact my brother's absence had on me until I was 28 and I sat with ayahuasca in 2018 in Peru. And I was literally during one of those ceremonies purging for my brother. And I was feeling his guilt, his shame, his embarrassment, his humiliation, all of his insecurities, right? And it gave me this different lens and perspective of, oh, wow, I had no idea my brother was experiencing those things. I wish I was in position to have helped him, on that journey. And it just led me down this path of really understanding that these different medicines and indigenous tools are here to help us heal and transcend and step into the best version of ourselves. So after I experienced psilocybin or after I experienced ayahuasca, I was like, what else is out there? What else has God gifted us that we can use without actually being a slave to big pharma? And when I found psilocybin, I was like, oh, wow, neuroplasticity in the brain. It's allowing us to connect in a deeper way with ourselves. It's actually starving blood flow from the amygdala part of our brain, which is responsible for fear. So now we're getting out of a fear-based lack scarcity mindset, and we're actually becoming more connected to the present moment. And that was really like such a light bulb moment for me when I first experienced mushrooms in an intentional way and then started sharing it with clients. And the rest is history. Like I just felt like I needed to start sharing this on social media. And so many people were reaching out. I've been on antidepressants for the last 15 years. I'm addicted to Adderall. I can't put down the vape. All of these things that people are struggling with, right? And it comes down to really always searching externally to make us feel whole internally. And as you know, as someone who teaches Kabbalah and all of the teachings, all of those things when we're chasing instant gratification is just us chasing the light. And those quick hits of dopamine are just quick hits of light where we feel like, oh my gosh, feel connected to the creator. But in reality, you're just masking shit and temporarily fixing things, but actually perpetuating the problem. And my intention is to really remind people that they're actually the medicine. They're actually their own healer. They actually have all the answers within themselves. And what happens in this human experience is oftentimes we just get disconnected. And we really just need to remember who we are where we came from, and that's what I help people do.
Yeah, it's really a powerful experience when you quiet the amygdala. And one experience that I had about a year ago, I was on a silent meditation retreat. And when you're doing silent meditation plus Kundalini breath, there's a way in which your body goes beyond the place that you know yourself, and you go into a very different place. And they took blood from some of us who were there to just see what the meditation we were doing, what effect it was having on us. And it increased our serotonin level by like 200%, basically, what we were doing on the meditation
Wow.
retreat. And the doctor explained that, like, psilocybin, the reason why that is effective is because the serotonin is sort of, where you really want to be, not in the dopamine, not in the molecule more, but in the molecule of like deep presence, and shutting down the amygdala, which is that fight or flight cortisol generator. And what I experienced on that retreat doing this Kundalini breath and these 5 days of silence is how much love is always in escrow for me, and how the world is magnificent. And I don't have to play the avatar of who my amygdala tells me to be, which is like on guard all the time. But when my heart is like really open and in receptive mode, the love that is trying to get in and get through all the time, it just brings you to your knees. It like makes you weep. How beautiful and loving the universe is. And I felt my grandparents around me. I felt people's prayers waiting for me. I heard those prayers. It was like there were music notes all around me, and it was like the prayer that people had sent forward on my behalf from just loving. It was really, really beautiful. And so I thought to myself, oh, I wonder if that's the experience that everybody has, not only in meditation, but sometimes, if you're doing some kind of like microdosing with psilocybin or something like that.
For sure.
But I don't know enough about it. So I would love you to kind of like speak more to, what does that actually mean? Is it something that you feel like people can get to without it? Or is it something that the idea is like to just have that with you all the time as nature's medicine?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question that you're asking. And I love that you had that experience. And I would say what you're describing is like this remembrance, and also just returning back to a state of gratitude. And it sounds very cliche because we're always talking about be grateful, journal 3 things you're grateful for.
Right.
But how often are you actually being present and giving gratitude for the things that you're exposed to on a day-to-day basis? Like simply being able to breathe in clean air, drink clean, fluoride-free water. Like I'm in Miami Beach right now, and I'm literally looking at the ocean and experiencing all of this magic. And like all of these things that we sometimes take for granted, the medicine helps you ground, and it helps you just, oh shit, let me slow down a little bit from always chasing the next thing and actually appreciate where I'm at in this moment. And especially as busy people, entrepreneurs, parents, I can't think of a better gift to give yourself and your loved ones than presence. You have 3 kids, and I'm sure based on everything I see, like it's really cool to see a mom that's a dedicated mom and also dedicated to her purpose. And what I see in my community, because we have a lot of moms who are microdosing, is like that's been such a big struggle for them, is trying to balance being the best mom possible, being the best partner possible, also having a career and prioritizing your health and healing at the same time. Like it's so much to balance, right? So one of the cool things that we've experienced with a lot of the people in our community, especially the moms, is like, oh, wow, I can actually prioritize myself. I can put myself first. I can fill up my cup, because when I do that, I'm able to show up for everyone else in my life in such a more powerful way. And so that's something that I think for you, and you can share your experience with me, like I see so many moms experiencing mom guilt on like a daily basis. And it's just beautiful to see people actually pour into themselves. I don't know if you had something to say before I actually answer your question.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, you asked a really important question, because I think there's people that might be listening or watching and they're like, okay, talking about microdosing, this substance, well, isn't that just a drug that is also kind of masking things like alcohol, like an antidepressant, right? It's searching externally for something internal that we're seeking. And my response to that is the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare industry in America is designed to keep you a customer for life, right?
Yeah.
You get prescribed a medication,
Yeah.
and oftentimes you become dependent on that medication. And after a couple months, they want to increase the dose so you still feel it. And then in that process, you become even more dependent. It
Yeah.
becomes very challenging to ever wean off of it.
Yeah.
And microdosing is the complete opposite, right? It's, first of all, microdosing, for those that don't know, is taking a subperceptual amount of a psychedelic. So if you want to go on a full mushroom journey, you're going to take at least like 3 grams. Microdosing is 1/10 of that. So 0.3 grams, we personally use 250 milligrams in our container. And what this does is just slightly elevate your presence, your focus, your ability to enter flow state, your ability to drown out unnecessary distractions. You're not going to be tripping. You're not going to be dancing with the dolphins or swimming with the mermaids. And there might be days where you don't even feel a difference, honestly. Microdosing is very subtle, but it gives us the opportunity, again, to create neuroplasticity, to reduce blood flow to the amygdala, and it gives us the ability to actually feel our feelings fully rather than operating. So many people are numb today, Kathy, and it's so disappointing. Like you have a child that is hyperactive or excited or anxious, and the first response is, what pill can we give them? It's like, no, how can we actually understand these emotions better? And rather than numb ourselves from them, how can we actually learn to feel them fully and express them in a healthy way? So that's probably the biggest thing that we help people with, is just reconnecting to themselves and reminding themselves that, like, you don't need to be scared to feel. You can actually feel fully, and that's going to just open up so much possibility and beauty in your life.
There's so many things I want to say because it's such a dense, juicy, beautiful topic. One of the things I wanted to say is that Deepak Chopra, he shared with me that he was saying like twice in his life, he did like serious psychedelics. And he said the reason why he really appreciates having gone on that deep journey is not because he wants to have that as a daily part of his life, but that what it did was gave him a remembering of what he could access, a reality that exists, a place of being that he can find within himself. And so his choice is to do deep meditation every day. And when I say deep meditation, he in particular meditates 4 hours a day. So 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. I mean, this is his life's work, which is, all hail. Like, that's amazing that he can do that. And also, not everybody is going to be able to take on a 4-hour meditation practice. But what I think is really, really interesting about what he said is that place that you remember that you can find within yourself, that state of being, right? And that remains with him, that he can now find that in his own deep meditation practice. He can peel away the persona that the ego, the amygdala, holds really tightly to, because he knows he's seen it before twice. He's seen through the eyes of the infinite twice.
Yeah.
To know where he can now find it. And now in meditation, he goes to really, really, really deep places.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure.
what I know to be the case, because I speak to thousands and thousands of people a year, is that people are not having a true experience of their life because they are so caught in a fog of cortisol that it is taking their life from them. They are waking up in Groundhog Day in the same 70,000 thoughts and feelings they had yesterday, which make them perceive their life and their world through a keyhole size lens. And it's actually seeing it in the most bastardized version, that they don't know that they're enough. They don't think that they can have this experience of their life that they want. They find that that's impossible, that's out of reach. And then they just kind of recirculate that same program. It's like a software.
Yep.
So for that reason, it seems very, very important that we start to find vehicles to set down that deep misperception and deep painful state of being, and find our way in a state of being that feels a lot more like what our soul came to this world to experience. And what you just shared is one way that we can start to clear away some of the clutter and the cobwebs so that we can feel ourselves present here in what actually is reality as it is.
Yeah.
And start to perceive through the lens of what is maybe available, which is a lot of love and a lot more possibility and a lot more freedom and a lot more wholeness.
For sure. Yeah. And that's really important too, what Deepak was referencing, right? Whether it's LSD, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's mushrooms, all of these compounds work differently. And they can be similar in the fact that they profoundly shift the way that you see the world, right? Yeah. And it's really important. I like to compare like a big trip of mushrooms, LSD, or ayahuasca to like going to the dentist for a deep cleaning, a deep reset. You probably only do that once or twice a year, right? And then the brushing and the flossing is that daily maintenance work that you're committed to every single day. You can think of that as like the meditation or the yoga or the clean nutrition or having your daily habits in order, right? And that's what I equate microdosing to, is the brushing and the flossing. It's like that integration. Now, what's really cool is, again, and let's just be very clear, I know people who have done hundreds of ayahuasca journeys and mushroom journeys, and they still can't find their keys. Their life is still in shambles because they haven't done anything to actually integrate all of the lessons and all of the downloads from their life into their day-to-day. And that's the most important thing, is like, okay, cool. You go to a seminar, you go to a workshop, you listen to Kathy's podcast, you listen to Jeremy's podcast. What are you going to do about it though? Like, are you actually going to take action? Because it's cool, to feel a little bit of inspiration, a temporary dopamine hit of motivation, but it really comes down to action and implementation, right? So I love that people like Deepak are really being outspoken in the psychedelic space. I think it's really important because, again, psychedelics aren't a replacement for meditation, for clean nutrition, for yoga. They're just another powerful tool to help us see, oh, wow, I actually need nature right now. I need to connect to my body right now. I need to send a voice note to my loved one right now, right? It literally just shows us what matters and purifies our priorities. That's what it does, honestly. And it's hard to measure that in a study, right, Kathy? It's hard to measure like, oh, wow, like, this person microdosed for 90 days and they feel 27% more connected to their purpose, or, 36% more connected to their intuition. It's hard to sometimes measure these things, but what you're referring to when you're talking about these people who are in this hamster wheel, right, is a lack of neuroplasticity. Their brain is so rigid, right? The older we get, the more ingrained we become in our habits, in our ways of being, and it becomes harder and harder to actually reprogram ourselves. That's why, like, the work that you're doing, what I help people do, I know one of the most important parts of my own journey is constantly unlearning. It's unlearning the programs, the stories, the narratives that no longer serve me in my future. They're no longer aligned. And that's what this human experience is about. It's not necessarily about learning new things. It's actually about unlearning old
Oh,
patterns.
mhm.
And I think that's what everyone needs, honestly,
Yes,
because we all have stories and narratives and belief systems that might have served us at one point in our life. But, as we grow and evolve and become a better version of ourselves, we outgrow some of those things. So we need to constantly be updating our software.
totally. I mean, it's what you just said is really such a important piece of information that everybody has to understand. And it's the reason why I was just sharing this today, but you can't get to the solution from the energy of the problem.
Mm,
And the mind that wants to overthink is just in the same fog, right? It's in the same circuit, right? The same circuit that has the problem, the resistance, whatever the issue is, or the lack of seeing a bigger possibility. It's not going to spit out the solution from that place. It's just going to keep going over and over and over again, which is why you can't think your way out of it. You have to actually remove yourself and change your energy, change your state of being. And when you move into wholeness of a lightness of being, that's where the solution lives. The solution finds you in the energy of the solution, which is wholeness, not in the energy of the problem when you're
mm,
caught in your mind. And so when people often attempt to meditate, they actually feel even worse because they say that was so hard and there's no way. And if that's the thing I'm supposed to do for neuroplasticity or peace, forget it. Now I'm even more aware that my thoughts are going crazy and this and that. And so for some people, one way to think about microdosing is like, well, it's going to help you, right? When you're wanting to be present and you're really addicted to a mind that's nonstop, it's going to help you slow down that mind and witness it a little bit easier and find it curious rather than judging it, right?
that's
Which
so
is
important what you
which is
just
the
said.
place of freedom. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's such an important point, is like, how often do we think something or feel something and we judge it as good or bad rather than actually be curious about it? And
What's
I have,
curious?
yeah, like I have so many people who will join our community, or they're thinking about starting microdosing, and they're like, is this going to help me defeat my anxiety? And what I tell them is like, I explain to them, listen, this medicine helps reduce blood flow to the amygdala, which is probably something that's going to benefit you a lot, because most people with really bad anxiety or ADHD have overactive amygdalas. Okay. So, yes, it's going to help reduce activity, and we're starving fear from the brain. And I actually want to reframe this idea of like removing anxiety completely and actually just building a relationship with it. Like, I get it. Anxiety is really uncomfortable, especially if it's something that's persistent. But I promise you, there's a reason it's showing up. And I'm sure you're aware of the book, Your Body Keeps the Score, right?
Mhm.
Every single feeling and emotion that we experience manifests in our physical body. And if
Ugh.
we just continue pushing things down, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's joy, whether it's pleasure, because if you're pushing down pain, you're most likely also pushing down pleasure because you're limiting your capacity to feel. So,
Mhm.
so again, what I really want to invite people to do, like you said, is to be less judgmental of like
Yeah.
what's happening right now in this moment, and actually be like, hey, why is this showing up in my movie?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is the lesson here? And how can I actually cultivate a deeper relationship? It's like, okay, let's tap into some breaths. Like, let's focus on longer exhales to activate your parasympathetic. That's going to
Yeah.
help with your anxiety. Let's talk about reducing some of the artificial sweeteners and having more healthy fats, DHA and EPA, to support your brain. So really my intention is to just like help people learn more about themselves, which I think is something that you also help people do. Because at the end of the day, we're in a relationship with ourselves for the rest of our lives. And every relationship in our life is a reflection of the relationship with ourselves. So I think
Wow,
it's
that's
worth,
really well said.
I think it's worth investing in that relationship every day.
Yeah. I'll just add this. For me, what really, really deeply sort of broke the program was when I met God, living in Jerusalem those 3 years. There were so many experiences that were so otherworldly, where my heart
Mm,
broke open and felt so deeply connected to something so mystical and such a oneness and such a deep sense of being loved by the divine, right? And anyone who's had an experience like that, um, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's like if you were present the day your daughter was born and you tried to describe that to someone, you can't really describe it. It's just like a feeling that is just like overpowers you in the most amazing way. And so I think those of us who've had a deep feeling where you feel like I've had, and I saw you recently posting this, but like I've had a few sunrise walks with God
mm,
on the beach that just bring me to my knees in tears, right? Or like hearing that voice inside of me, like Moses standing in front of the burning bush and God says, take off your shoes because the ground you stand on is holy ground, right?
mm,
Because that's where you're standing. It is holy because you are standing on it, right? It's like
mm,
there is a divinity that has an answer that is always there, but there are no answers in the mind. There's only wisdom in the heart. And so recently they did an fMRI study on a bunch of monks at Columbia, and there was almost no brain activity. And yet these are very wise souls because there are no answers in the mind. The answers are actually located in the heart. So for
mm.
me, what really deeply like broke me open was letting go of this Kathy Heller avatar and coming back to like who I really am as a soul, right? And so that part of me is plugged into that which is, was, and will be, right? And I think that what you're helping people reach for and what I'm saying is really we're reaching for that same thing, which is not to plug in looking for answers in the mind and in the little personality that lives in the mind, but actually overriding that so we can actually find our true answer and the true wholeness, which is in our beingness itself. It's something so much bigger than the mind, which is like the most superficial aspect of the human being. And so I think it's really beautiful just to even remember that that's what you're looking to access, because that's where your intuition is. That's where your surrender is. That's where you're in trust. That's where you're in flow state, right? And so I think it's gorgeous that you are having that conversation and have found a tool that can help people to move into that alignment.
Yeah. Kathy, I always say that the longest journey we take in this human experience is the 18-inch journey from our head to our heart. And especially as men, because we're more logical creatures. So we've been spending a majority of our lives in our head, solving problems, analyzing things, and that's necessary for sure. That is necessary at times, right? And I'm sure if you spoke to many women in their 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s, right? They'd probably say, yeah, it's tough to find emotionally available men who are tapped into their hearts, right? And even on the other side of the spectrum, with everything that's been going on with like the whole boss bitch, I'd love to actually get your perspective on this. So many women have been pushed this narrative from the feminist movement, whoever is responsible for that, that they don't need a man, that they need to spend their whole life like working,
Oh, no,
grinding, hustling.
not good stuff.
Yeah, and it's forced a lot of women also in that energy where they're spending so much time in their head and they're disconnected from their heart. And at the end of the day, it's like, that's not really who you are. It's not who I am. It's like, yeah, our mind is beautiful and our heart is actually massively more expansive. And yeah, so anything that can remind people of that, like it's so beautiful just to see, whether it's on our live calls or at our in-person events, like just seeing people feeling safe to actually express themselves, speak their truth, right? Feel different emotions, be happy and dance and move and express joy. It's like that's part of being a human being, and yeah, so I'm just grateful. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm just grateful for being able to be a vessel of the medicine. And at the end of the day, what's beautiful is you can't see what you can't see, right? So a lot of times, and once you see something, you can't unsee it. So someone might have an experience with mushrooms and they have this very clear vision. They have this newfound perspective. You can't unsee that, right? And we've helped a lot of people give up things like alcohol. I work with a lot of high performing men and a lot of them are in finance. And, part of their day-to-day life is like, going to networking or dinners and stuff like that. It's normal to have a couple of drinks. They're not alcoholics, but they recognize, this is not serving me. It's slowing me down. I'm not able to be as present with my kids. My workouts are suffering. My energy is suffering. Oh. And literally, like, when you do, a lot of times when you do mushrooms, you can even see alcohol, see someone drinking. You're like, that just doesn't seem appealing to me. Like the vibration is just out of alignment.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because when people hear about people doing mushrooms, microdosing, ayahuasca, whatever, sometimes people have some judgment around it, right? Of course, people have judgment about a lot of things. But what's not often judged is like social drinking, right? Which is like, in fact, people like see it as like hey, I'll bring rosé. Oh, and margaritas. Like it's as if it's like just adorable and charming and lovely and a blast and all this stuff. And like, that really is so interesting, right? Because that actually is such it's a negative in terms of just like measuring vibration, right? Like alcohol is actually like it's not a positive charge, it's a negative charge into the body, right? And it's straight up poison, right? It's like not good for your system. But it's interesting that certain things are looked at as like, ooh, why is that person, talking about microdose? And then the other hand, it's like, oh, well, everybody knows that you're going to pass around bottles of wine and that's totally normal. And it's interesting because one is like a masker, it masks, right? And pushes down. And the other one is actually a eye opener, right? It's like literally opening things up. And I may have shared this with you because I sent you some of my book, but one of the things that I love that really hooked me into Judaism was the idea that the word Shabbat, which is the Sabbath, is the same word for meditation. And the idea that like the first time that word is used in the Torah is when Abraham is meditating. And so what does it say? It says, and Abraham did this thing called Shabbat, and then he saw God, right? He spoke to God. And the idea is that we have this capacity to see so much further. We have this capacity to tap into something that actually sees further than what we see in our mind, right? It's something so beyond. And it's for anyone who's listening, like you maybe remember those in the 90s, there was this like art thing where you looked at it, you didn't see anything, but if you looked at it again and again, you actually could see into the painting and it actually like expanded. It's like what I hear you saying, Jeremy, and I think that's why you use this awakens as your handle. It's like there's an awakening that's hidden in plain sight, right in your grasp. But when you're trained to only use this one tool to look, you see nothing. But when you look through what actually is within you, there's a way that you can see for miles. You can see forever. You can see the oneness of all things. And I think that's what you are offering to people is an invitation to see further and to see something that's way more expanded. And it's really powerful that it even exists.
Yeah. And it's beautiful too, because for me personally, mushrooms helped reconnect me to God. And I know people might hear that and they think it's crazy, but like, I grew up Jewish, went to a day school, got bar mitzvahed, um, and then even went to Israel after high school for a gap year, which was amazing. And then, came back, went to University of Oregon, not a big Jewish scene there. And, I got completely disconnected from Judaism. What happened was I kind of felt judged whenever I would go into like these Jewish circles, whether it was Hillel or whatever it was. And, I look a little different. I talk a little different. I got a little different swag to me. Right. And, you know, uh, 18 months ago, literally a month before October 7th, Kathy, it was a full moon. And I was like feeling some empty void in my life. From the external, things probably looked amazing if you would see my life. But I knew internally there's something missing. And I took a small dose of mushrooms, 1 gram, so a little more than a microdose. And I was like, I'm just going to lock myself in my apartment right now, like take a hot bath and get to the root cause of this. Why am I feeling this way? You know? And what came up for me in that experience was literally God coming up to me and saying, Jeremy, bro, where have you been, man? Like, why are you trying to do everything by yourself? I'm here to support you. And I was like, holy shit, it's so true. I've been like trying to do all of these things and make it happen from a space of like force rather than like trusting and having more faith. And that Friday night, I went to Shabbat dinner at Chabad. I felt so much love. The rabbi there and I became close friends. He started meeting me every single morning to wrap tefillin. And I started to just feel more connected and it felt really good. And then, being in Israel this past summer, obviously it was my first time there in 13 years. And obviously being there during a time of war was another layer of emotion. And being there and going to the hotel and being in Jerusalem, literally, like you said, it's just such sacred energy. Like literally every step is like, oh my gosh. And so yeah, I think a lot of people are disconnected from the creator and not even from a Jewish or religious standpoint, but I think whenever you feel that separation from God, you're never truly going to be in a state of peace.
No.
So I'm not saying that everyone needs psychedelics or microdosing to connect deeper to God, but I know for me, it's helped. I know for many of my peers, it's helped a lot. And, at the end of the day, none of these things are magic pills. They're all just tools to learn more about ourselves. And my biggest goal is like, we work with people. I tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm going to help you get to a completely different place within 90 days. I don't want you to be a client for life, right? I'm not big pharma. Okay. I want to actually give you the tools to become your own healer, your own health coach. And if you feel called to work beyond that because you see so much value, I'm totally cool with that too. But I'm just telling you, that's not my intention. My intention is to equip you with the tools to be your own health coach, your own healer. And that's the energy I want to operate from.
Oh my gosh, it totally brought me to tears. It's so beautiful, that whole scene where you said, God said to you, why are you doing this alone? Like, I'm here to help you. And I mean, it's just so beautiful. Like, the act of surrender is not weakness, it's trust. It's trust in something so much bigger than us. It's this river of life that was here before we got here. It'll be here forever. And there's so much that wants to support us. And you're right. Like, that is available to every soul. And it's just so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that experience. And I've been so moved how much you've been just glowing and radiating and shining and sharing with such deep joy your pride in being Jewish. And I think the first time that you came across my feed, I'm like, who is this cutie pie, like cute guy rapping to fill-in who has like hundreds of thousands of people looking at his content, and he's so proudly Jewish and also so happily like in the world. I was like, this is such an unusual, you know, most people don't realize that there are so few Jews in the world. I mean, they don't, when I tell people that there are 15 million Jews in the entire world, they're like, can't be. And I'm like, yeah, like a dot. And so, you know, amongst us, how many people of us, like, you know, have a following and then choose to use it to actually be proudly Jewish. So it takes a tremendous amount of courage. And I just, when you go to sleep at night, I just want to say personally, like, I'm so proud of you for doing that. And I know that your grandparents, like, they prayed for you to be you exactly as you are. You're the answer to their prayer. So it's so beautiful. And what an amazing ambassador you are, because you're so loving and you're such a light. So it's such a gift. It's such a gift. And it takes so much courage. It shouldn't be something that requires courage, but there's 4,000 years of hatred. So it does. It takes so much courage.
Damn, Kathy. You legit got me crying, for real. That is, thank you for those words. Yeah.
What has it been like for you to include your Jewish identity in your work? How has that been for you?
Oh man, it's been a journey. It's been a completely unexpected turn that I never really anticipated, but that's how life works, is always unexpected gifts and blessings that we can't really predict are going to happen. So yeah, honestly, after the October 7th thing happened, I literally was just filled with so much anger and rage, because obviously, you know, what happened on October 7th was so devastating and not that surprising, because we know what Hamas is. It was really the worldwide response, right? And it was like before even Israel retaliated or did anything to defend itself, people were just in the streets by the hundreds of thousands and, you know, cheering for this. And I was just so confused. And I literally was waking up in the middle of the night, like at 3 or 4 a.m. for 2 weeks straight, because I was like, okay, I've never really talked about this stuff ever before. And now I'm feeling so connected, and I literally feel like I need to. Also, I'm going to be sick. So I started just kind of like sharing stuff in my stories. I was doing lives and stuff. Probably lost like 20 to 30,000 followers in like a span of 3 or 4 months. You know, all the things, getting a lot of death threats, all this stuff. But in that process, so many people found me, and a lot of people who were already following me that were Jewish, like they were like, oh my gosh, like I love this guy even more. Wow. And for me, it's really just comes down to, I'm very big on authenticity and speaking your truth and saying and standing for what you believe in. And especially when it comes down to stuff regarding Judaism and Israel, like you mentioned, we're 0.2% of the world's population. And when you think about, okay, what percent of that 0.2% actually has some sort of platform to use to be vocal and support our people, like it's such a small percentage. And it was just like I felt an obligation, and I felt this fire burning inside of me. And I just, yeah, like rapping to fill in, I was, you know, I would just do it and I would put it in my stories, and then I would get messages from guys like, I haven't rapped to fill in 10 years, but like now I'm inspired to do it. And then it just became like a fun game. Like we would literally, my rabbi and I, we would just be at the coffee shop, like, and we just, hey man, you rapped to fill in today. And we would just like rap people. I've probably rapped like 250 people just this year, these 2 months. I bring it to Soho House. I bring it to the beach. I bring it literally everywhere because it's a great point of connection. And, obviously everything that happened was so devastating, and it still is. And if we're going to be optimists and we're going to find the silver lining, I've never felt this proud to be Jewish. I've never felt like the Jewish community has been this united. Regardless if you're religious, if you're secular, it doesn't fucking matter. We're Jews. We need to come together. We need to stand together, and we need to really understand, like, we must be the leaders of our lineage. So that's what it comes down to. And yeah, like it's honestly a blessing, because there's people, I talked to a couple people before I started, like, I was like, guys, I'm thinking of, this is really coming up for me. And, and I feel called to like share some stuff. And, one of my buddies was like, bro, if you got to do it, like, you got to do it, like, go do it. And then a couple other people are like, your mission's to bring health, healing, health and healing doesn't really have any borders, you might lose a lot of business opportunities, whatever. And I was like, honestly, I don't give a fuck about that stuff. If someone doesn't want to do business with me because I'm Jewish or because I support Israel, like, that's completely okay. I don't really care. And it's been beautiful to see, honestly, the relationships that I've created in the last year, just from being myself and being vocal. And I think it's inspired a lot of people. Like you said, if I would have been 15, 16, 22, 24, and I would have had someone like me, I'm 34 now, like, seeing someone like me wrap tefillin and someone like me talking about it, I would have been like, oh, wow, like, Judaism's actually cool. You know what I'm saying? So I also feel like that's kind of the next chapter I'm stepping into too, is like, as I learn more of these things and integrate them more into what I do, I hope to inspire, the next generation of Jews. And, hopefully we can do that.
That's so unbelievably just, it's such a gift to hear it. It's so powerful. It's so special. It's so once in a lifetime. So few people choose to have that level of integrity, to be fully who they are. And when you go to sleep at night, what matters is that you answer to yourself and God. You don't answer to people. You do your mission, period, as you are. I had a very similar experience, and my book was actually supposed to come out last February. It wound up coming out the following December, because after October 7th, I said, could I please rewrite the first few chapters, because I want to write in detail about what it was like to live in Jerusalem. I want to give people a picture of my lived experience and how much love I learned from living there, and what it is to be who I am today because of that experience, because of what is baked into that. And so they were okay with it. And so we pushed it back, and it was such a gift to go even deeper into the Jewish piece of it. And similar to you, I was like, what is this going to cost me? And I was like, well, at the end of the day, it's not going to cost me my soul, because I'm going to be fully in it. And then it turns out people are quite interested. People are interested in David Guillaume and Gedalia Fenster. People are like, oh, I want to know this wisdom, like, give me more of it. And so I think it's time for people like you and I, and therefore we become like a shamash, right? Like on the Hanukkah candles, one light lights the other lights. It's like we remind people to speak your words of truth, whatever that is for you, right? Like there's so many different ways that we can inspire others to say that out loud. But it's interesting. I had Mitch Albom, who wrote this book, Tuesdays with Morrie. He wrote a bunch of other books. He's an amazing human being. He happened to be on the podcast booked for November of 2023. And neither of us, when he came on, knew that we were just going to have lived through the October 7th. And his book was about Nazi Germany. And he said, it's interesting because I intended this book to come out now. I wrote this book 2 years ago, but I didn't know it was coming out now based on current events. And he says, the book starts out saying, the book is called The Little Liar. And he said, I called it that because there was a famous quote from a Nazi that said, if you tell a lie once eventually people will know it's a lie. But if you say a lie over and over and over and over and over again, people just will believe that it's true. And so the thing about, we're such a tiny, tiny dot, right? There's 15 million Jews, there's 2 billion Christians, about 2 billion Muslims. We're really a dot. So our narrative is very, 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 very tiny. It is a microdose. We are a microdose. And so when you go back and you think about just the fact that people don't even question when something's been said over and over again, it's like, did you erase King David? Did you erase Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Did you erase all the archaeological? Did you erase the fact that Israel is mentioned so many times in the Quran itself? It's mentioned, obviously, it is Judaism. Zionism is Judaism. All we do all day long in Judaism is pray for Israel, is pray for the return to Jerusalem. That's all we do all day long, right? Not to mention, you can Google, the Palestinian flag used to have a Star of David on it because it was an occupied land by the British and by the Ottomans. But before that, the only time it was its own state was when Jews were there, right? And then they were given this back. And of course, it's been a fight since we reclaimed it. It's like we can't even be in our own indigenous land. It's just unbelievable. But the response was, you're right, it was absolutely devastating. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to do anything. I thought there's no way I can wake up every day and do what I do, which is to try to love and motivate and inspire people when I'm so broken. But I remember that one of the, I think I shared this too, but this is the last thing I'll say, but one of the prayers in the Siddur in the morning brachot is to be like a rooster. And why? Because the rooster is the first one on the farm who knows just when it looks like the light is completely gone out and it's the darkest it could possibly be. At the split second, it's the darkest, the rooster crows and says, wake up because the dawn is here. And why do we ask God to make us like roosters? Because the darkness is not the end of the story, right? And we were born for such a time as this to be a rooster, that when it is the darkest, our souls chose to be on this volunteer mission to summon the light. And so any soul that is on the planet in this time, it's like, the month of Kislev, which is the darkest month, which is the darkest days, the December month, it's very dark days because the light is not around as much as it is in June. But we call that the month of miracles because in a dark room, you can reveal so much light, right? It's an invitation to reveal it. So then we stand in our mission, right? To reveal more light. And love is such a high vibration. It creates so much coherence and order, and hate creates so much chaos. And so the more we love and the more we love and the more we stand for oneness and the more we stand for love and oneness for the world over and over, it just creates coherence. And so we will, and so we've been, and so we will. And we've seen the movie. We've seen this before.
Yeah, I like to sit back and listen to your words because they're very soulful. And it's honestly I'm very grateful and excited for the future. I think we're entering like a new era in America and overall as a collective. I feel like the consciousness has really been forced to elevate itself, because for so long we've been operating from fear and scarcity and divisiveness. And now all of the lies, all of the deceit has been exposed, is being exposed in America. And I just think it's really amazing and it's admirable for you to stand on your truth. And I know you're going to lose people along the way, but you're also going to gain so many people who just love you unconditionally. And that's really what we're out here to do, is create real conscious community and connection. And, it's funny that you said that too. I was laughing when you said the Jews are like a microdose of the people on this earth. It's so, so true. And honestly, regardless if it's being proud of your Judaism, I think one of the biggest things I see people struggling with is just speaking their truth, because as humans, we are wired to get the approval from our tribe. And in the era we're living in now with social media, it's like we think that our friends are the people that follow us on social media. It's like maybe a very small percentage of them, but the amount of people that are addicted to chasing external validation and suppress their truth and authenticity in that process is absolutely astonishing. And my intention is to, again, remind people that it's okay to be yourself. Like that's literally your superpower, right?
Totally. I
And
mean, yes, that's such an important piece of wisdom, no matter what. And, the thing about love, right, is that love holds space for everybody's truth, right? That's the difference between hate and love. Like, I can say everything I just said, and so did you. And I didn't say one bitter thing about anyone else because I have love for all people or all around this globe. I want everyone to feel loved and free. And I have that empathy. We held an event in our house for a few of the victims of October 7th and the sweetest kids who their parents were murdered. Not one word of hate. All they wanted to do was say, be a light to the world. Nobody said they told their stories of what happened on the day and then just said all they want to do is see love around the whole world. I mean, that's when there's only two sides. There's either love or there's not love. And so love is the side. And if that's the case, then you're saying whatever is your truth about whatever it is that you believe. If you're saying it from a place of love, right?
yeah,
Then if somebody just chooses to judge you or to leave, right, then that comes at way too high a cost, right? Because we don't expect each other to have the same faces. So why do we expect each other to have the same thoughts? And oneness is not sameness. And it means we're supposed to be different instruments in the same orchestra and play different notes. And it's important for us to think differently and see it differently so that we can have a wider lens. And so people are too worried about belonging. And so they will self-abandon what they believe to be true just to belong, which means they don't belong to anyone anymore.
exactly. Yeah, that's usually what happens. I experienced the exact same thing when I was in Israel for 6 weeks this summer. Like many of these people were survivors, their families of victims, etc. Instead, they were focused on, hey, how can we rebuild from this? And that is just a beautiful reminder of why the Jewish people are the Jewish people, right? 0.2% of the population, the most resilient people in the world. It doesn't matter what obstacles we face because we always transmute the obstacles into opportunities to transcend. And I have a tattoo that says Hatmada, which means perseverance, persistence. We just keep going. Like we know we can't stop. Like we can't.
Yeah, it's almost like, things like, any hate that comes towards us, it's almost like you use the word transmute. It's like that's what activates the most, innovative, loving what are we going to create for progress? It's like it's an activator, if anything. So anyway, may you just continue to be blessed to shine and keep spreading love and consciousness and awakening. And thank you for coming in and tell everybody where they can find you and follow along.
This was a really special conversation. Literally after you said some of those words, like my whole body was overcome, not even with goosebumps, but it was like a vibration and like it was really impactful. And that rarely happens to someone I'm speaking to virtually. So thank you for that. Thank you for having me.
So
and what I actually did, like before we recorded this, is I had my team create a special opportunity for anyone in your community to join our microdosing community. If they want to try it out for 30 days, there's no long-term commitment. They can use the code abundance. We'll put it in your show notes, microdosingmastermind.com. And yeah, people can follow me at jeremy.awakens on Instagram, TikTok, the Jeremy Awakens podcast, which you will be a guest on when you come to South Florida next. Hopefully, I think you said in April you're coming, right?
Yeah, but I'll be back again and again. So whenever it works out for you.
Yeah, we need to make it happen. And yeah, I would love to connect with your audience and see how I can support them in any way. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity today.
So beautiful, Jeremy. Thank you so much.